We're going to take you now to New York for a live look at inside the United Nations Security Council, where members are just voted on a new American resolution for a Gaza ceasefire. But that resolution has failed to pass. Let's get now more on this vote. We'll go to New York, where journalist Sally Patterson is standing by inside the UN building there. Sally, you've been watching this vote unfold. We saw 2 vetoes. Talk us through what happened.
Well, this was due to be a really significant day here at the United Nations because the US had put forward a draft resolution that basically called for a ceasefire. It's the first time we've seen language of that type, which was so firm in its desire to see that happen. And it did say that that needed to be linked to hostages still being held in the Gaza Strip. The two would go hand in hand. The US said that it had been through multiple rounds of consultations before it brought this draft text to members at the council, but it did fail to pass, and that's because 2 different permanent members used their veto vote to make sure that it was stopped in its tracks. That was Russia and China. And it's perhaps unsurprising that we saw that happen. The US ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, accused them both of attempting to block their support, saying that really it was only blocked because it was penned by the United States, accusing this of being an act of diplomacy and politics rather than in the name of what's best for the region. Here's what she had to say in the Security Council.
Russia and China still could not bring itself to condemn Hamas's terrorist attacks on October 7th. The second reason behind this veto is not just cynical, it's also petty. Russia and China simply did not want to vote for a resolution that was penned by the United States because it would rather see us fail than to see this council succeed.
Sally, Linda Thomas-Greenfield calling it petty there, but it is worth mentioning, as you just did, the United States has vetoed 3 previous resolutions in that same chamber. So what accounted for this difference in position today with regard to the U.S. draft resolution?
Well, we have seen in recent weeks a shift in the US's response to how it's dealing with its close ally Israel. At the beginning of the war 5 months ago, we saw the US stand very strong with its ally, condemning the acts of violence by Hamas and other groups in the region, which led to the death of more than 1,200 people and took more than 250 people hostage. Now, over recent weeks, we've seen a shift in that attitude. Yes, they say that what happened was unacceptable, but the US is calling more and more for more humanitarian aid to get into Gaza. They've ramped up efforts to increase the food and medical supplies getting into the Strip as people run out of those resources that they desperately need to survive. We're also seeing negotiations going on in Qatar, looking at potentially reaching a deal on a ceasefire, but the US is standing firm that it needs to see clear criteria within that to ensure that Israel's borders are secure in the future. But what we're seeing is a growing rift between Israel and the United States over how far Israel will go to secure its own border, potentially at the expense of those living in Gaza.
Journalist Sally Patterson reporting from New York. Thank you very much, Sally.